But with self-custody and the Genesis token, whatever that you collected as rewards from the apps actually sits in your wallet. So this is the only phone that you actually get rewarded just for using it.
Welcome to W3G, the official podcast for IS XYZ and your go-to hub to learn the latest developments in growth and marketing in the wild and wonderful world of Web3. I'm Julie Octaviano, head of DAO operations and client success at IS XYZ.
And I'm Blake Minho Kim, co-founder of IS XYZ. Each week, we'll talk to leaders in Web3 about the state of the industry, what they're building, and best practices around all things Web3 marketing and growth. W3G is a place for everyone to get smart and public together, whether you're Web3 native or novice.
So tune in each week as we talk to the best and brightest so we can all grow together in the world of Web3. Today we'll be speaking with Laura Shen, head of marketing, and Calvin Chan, marketing ops specialist at Solana Mobile, a key player in the Solana ecosystem driving Web3 mobile adoption forward with Saga, the first Web3 native phone.
If you're interested in understanding how and why Web3 mobile is absolutely critical for the future of crypto, this is the listen for you. We talked to Laura and Calvin to better understand why a Web3 native phone needs to exist, what makes Saga so unique, and how anyone in Web3 can get involved with the world's first Web3 native mobile app store.
So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's episode number 17 with Laura Shen and Calvin Chan. Hey Laura, hey Calvin, how are you guys both doing today?
Hey, Julie. Thank you for having us here. Doing very well. How about you and Blake?
We're great. First of all, just wanted to thank you both for joining us on the pod, and full disclosure for all of our listeners, I've been working with Laura and Calvin pretty closely over the last few weeks, I guess a few months now, to help market the launch of Saga. So very much looking forward to having a more casual conversation where we can just zoom out and talk all things Solana Mobile and Web3 marketing. So yeah, really excited to dive into things. And with that said, we typically like to kick things off with origin stories. So would love to hear a little bit about your guys' personal backgrounds and just overall journey, getting here specifically, how each of you guys got your start in marketing and then eventually Web3. So I guess let's start with Laura and then Calvin.
Yeah, sounds good. Actually, I know Calvin didn't get to say a quick hi. Do you want to just say a quick hi to both of them?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I was just going to say hey, Julie, it's been great working with you over the past little while, and great to be here with you too, Blake.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Excited to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you again for having us. So origin story. So I have been with Solana Mobile for about 8 months now, but in crypto years, it feels like it's been 8 years. So feels like it's been a while and feels like we've accomplished a lot. But right before joining Solana, I was at PayPal. I helped launch and I led marketing for PayPal's crypto products for about a year. PayPal's product was mass market, but was pretty basic and nascent. PayPal offers 4 coins for buy, hold, and sell. It's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. So that's kind of how I got very interested in crypto, and then how I kind of jumped into the proverbial rabbit hole myself. And then mid of last year, I was kind of thinking about going deeper into the Web3 ecosystem. And at the time, I think you guys probably know this too, there aren't just that many Web3 marketers out there. So I kind of talked to a lot of different protocols and different projects. And I ended up really liking the people I met at Solana. And I was really, really intrigued by the product, Saga. It was right after Saga was announced that I got connected with the Solana team. And I was very intrigued. And I got offered the position to lead marketing at Solana Mobile. And then the rest is history. And it's been 8 years. 8 months.
Amazing.
But,
But 8, yeah.
Probably
it's like dog years.
Feels like 8 years sometimes.
Calvin, how about you?
I got my start in marketing actually in the UK. So I did a 1-year degree there, and right at the end of that, just fell into agency work. So got my start at traditional marketing and advertising agencies. Came back to Canada, where I live now. Was born and raised really close to Vancouver, and yeah, just worked in sort of those traditional industries like real estate, e-commerce, that sort of thing, Web 2. And I guess it was the summer of 2021. I was building my own PC my own personal computer. It was when the graphics card shortage was happening, and I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with that, but it was all hands on deck to try to, collect as many graphics cards as you could to mine Ethereum. And so I was one of those, built my own like residential rig, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with the ETH. So it really started out as sort of this like organic hobby. I looked into different projects on Discord, decided which projects to get into, which ones not to. And I think through that experience, just decided to make a career pivot into the space just because I found it super interesting. Didn't really know where blockchain was going to go. Really interested to see like what digital identity was and could be. And so about a year and a half ago now, made that professional pivot. Before joining Solana Mobile, I was at Palm NFT Studio and Unstoppable Domains, which I'm sure we can get into some questions about those. But all of those really had to do with, I think, revenue generation around digital identity. Here we are selling this handset, first of its kind in Web3, and yeah, super excited to be here.
For you, Calvin, I know you mentioned kind of the similarity across the board between Palm, Unstoppable, and obviously now Solana Mobile is, how to generate revenue around a digital identity. But curious from your, couple years of experience in the space at pretty like great organizations in terms of Web3, curious to know what some of the differences are in marketing. I guess, first of all, what you were doing at Palm and Unstoppable versus like what your role is in Solana Mobile, and what differentiates what you were doing or certain aspects of marketing that you were touching there versus now.
I would say that, yeah, so not that you're interviewing me and not that I need to give you a rundown of the resume, but super quick, at Palm NFT Studio, the big project I was working on was in collaboration with Warner Brothers and DC Comics. We did like an over 10,000 PFP drop for Batman cowls. And sort of that opened sort of an ecosystem for blockchain comics. We didn't end up naming it that, but it was basically you could own these stories and own your own story by collecting these comic books. So that was our product there. At Unstoppable Domains, Web3 domains, like they got .polygon now, but the OG ones are like .crypto, .x, and really getting people like galvanized around, a digital identity around these names. And there's obviously a biz dev aspect to that. And then here at Solana Mobile, really getting this phone launched into the hands of consumers, but as well, there is a developer marketing aspect to that all as well. I think your question was around maybe differences between like Web 2 and Web 3, or maybe
different areas of Web 3 even, because even like you were saying, like the Palm one, you focus more on PFP, so there's more of like an NFT angle, where like here at Solana Mobile, I imagine it's hard, you're dealing with a physical hardware device.
I think the biggest thing in marketing all three of those projects was really figuring out with the team the level of jargon that's appropriate for the audience. So in each of those, I guess, experiences, we had to convey like you owned something like on the blockchain or something physical. And I think that the various communities had a certain level of like comfort, certain level of desire for like technical language. And I'm sure Laura can riff off this as well, but we're finding in marketing Solana Mobile, whether you're talking with a developer or talking to a degen, it's very different. You have to have your ear to the ground all the time. And the language that you use to sort of like abstract what we're selling and educate people, it's very dynamic and something that we definitely need to have a pulse on at all times.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? I think one of the things we ask pretty much every guest that comes on at some point, like what's their take on Web2 versus Web3 marketing? And I think the thing we always hear, and we agree with this and we have the same viewpoint, is at the end of the day, it's just about knowing who the audience is, right? And so just being able to toggle and make sure that you're actually speaking the same language that the people you're marketing to actually understand, right? And so just following up on what Julie's asking, right? I think same thing for you, Laura. We'd love to get your take on, with your experiences at PayPal versus Solana Mobile, similar but different, right? Where just would love to hear your take as well between those two experiences.
PayPal is kind of a quintessential Web 2, right? It's a big Web 2 success story that's been around for 25 years. So I would say the biggest thing that's different and also was a little surprising for me. So the surprising part is kind of a secondary thought of the difference is at PayPal, I was used to market to hundreds of millions of people, right? And you kind of just put out your marketing campaign out there and you just see the numbers rolling in and you do analytics on the back end. And it kind of becomes just a qualitative and quantitative analytics look on how your campaign did. However, Web3 is obviously still much smaller, but I think the most valuable thing and the most different thing is how community driven Web3 is. Whichever project that you're working on, whether it's more like a commoditized exchange, like decentralized exchange, or you're a very culture driven NFT project, either way, you're going to have a Discord, and the Discord enables that two-way conversation, and the community members feel very invested in the success of a project they're involved in. So I think that is the biggest difference, is how much quicker you get that feedback loop and how much more you can actually iterate in real time to make sure that your product is meeting user needs. So that's the biggest difference. But part of the learning for me was also a surprise for me, was everybody talks about ecosystem, talk about community. But when you say the Solana ecosystem, it's also pretty fragmented. So you have the developer community, then you have the degen community. They're kind of on the two sides of the same coin, but they oftentimes talk slightly different languages and they have different needs and wants. So occasionally they're at odds. And then you also have the very NFT focused community, and then you have the DeFi community, and they kind of also in their own little circles. So you talk about a ecosystem, but it's also very, very fragmented of how they become like their own little circles, and you kind of have to go each and every one community and engage with them. So I would say, if you would call it a downside, is Web3 marketing, in my view, currently is not very scalable the way that Web2 marketing was scalable. So I think we don't have a solution of it right yet, but maybe that is staying true to the ethos of decentralization. So even the communities are kind of dissipated and doing their own thing, but overall form an ecosystem that's thriving and it's a vibrant ecosystem.
And that really makes sense, right? Because I think it's something, there's like a thesis we have, which is it's exactly that, right? Which is like, we call it direct to community, right? Which is at this point, it's the marketing paradigm. We know that the thing that you're talking about at PayPal, right? Like programmatic and paid at scale, that's very much built on these traditional Web2 rails where you're able to just kind of put paid advertising behind these things. But yeah, as you said, Web3 is, because it's so community driven, but it's also incredible, right? And that there's the pros and cons, because it actually enables the customers to become real stakeholders and really participate and drive the momentum. But like you just said, there's a flip side, which it's a huge pain, right? And there's a lot of stakeholders to engage. You didn't say that, right? I did. But there's a lot of people to engage, a lot of communities, which can be challenging. So I do have a quick kind of follow up on that, which is, I guess, and it's a pretty open-ended question, which is like, what do you think it will take, I guess, for the marketing to become more scalable? I guess it'll have to come with the ecosystem growth as a whole, right? And then the products are the tooling and the analytics are so nascent as well. But I don't know. It's a pretty open-ended question, but just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I can't say I've given it a ton of thought of how this can become scalable. I think it will come with audience growth and audience size. Because right now, like every time you go to one community, it's somewhere between a couple hundred people to a couple like tens of thousands of people for a bigger community. But if a Discord has 1 million people, that in itself is a much easier way to target a whole group of people that has shared interests. Right now, I think just the community is the ecosystem is lots of projects, but the community itself is not that big yet. So if we just grow the overall pie, I think by nature, it will become more scalable. And then the other thing is, I don't think we have great ways to quote unquote target people. I know it's a very Web2 term and Web3 people don't like being targeted, but right now we don't have great identifiers for users. In Web2, usually your identity is tied to your email address across different sites. In Web3, yes, wallet is one way, but everybody has 10 to 20 wallets. So it's very hard to tie all the wallets into one person. So again, this is the ethos of Web3. So I think Web3, one of the differences that I did not talk about is Web2, you have much more avenues to actually do push marketing. Web3, you have to actually change your mentality to do more pull marketing so people come to you. So the way you do that is by providing more value, whether it's content or utility or what have you. But I think because it's harder to do targeting, you have to pull people over to you instead of you pushing to people.
Amazing. And I'm really excited, actually. So that's actually a perfect segue, because I think we do want to talk, obviously, about Solana Mobile and what you guys are doing in terms of providing value, growing the ecosystem. But I'll kind of hand it over to Julie for that.
For those who may not be aware, who are maybe at the beginning of their Web3 education journey, Solana is obviously one of the leading layer 1 blockchains. It has its own native token, Sol, and it's built for mass adoption. But with that said, I would love to have you guys break down for listeners to have them better understand the relationship between Solana and Solana Mobile. What are some of the differences, and also how are they connected?
So overall, there is a Solana Foundation and there's a Solana Labs. So Foundation is this nonprofit organization that's headquartered in Switzerland, and its goal is to actually look after the growth of the overall Solana ecosystem and kind of steward the adoption of Solana and the health of the overall chain. So their goal is not to generate revenue. Their goal is to kind of be the stepping stone and help ecosystem teams and projects to build and then succeed. So that's what Solana Foundation does. And then separately, there is Solana Labs. So Solana Labs is actually mostly an engineering-focused company. It is a for-profit company. And the first Solana validator client came out of Solana Labs. Most of the Solana validators are currently still running the version that Solana Labs created. So that is actually about 80-90% of Solana Labs. And then Solana Mobile is a fully owned subsidiary of Solana Labs. So we are part of Solana Labs, but we are also a for-profit unit under the Solana Labs umbrella. So we, our team, focus on growing the mobile ecosystem through hardware and software and all the integrations. So we are making a big bet on the mobile play on Solana, but we are a for-profit organization that sits under Solana Labs.
Maybe just to add to that, I would say that, to me, I don't know if this is written in stone anywhere, but I certainly see Solana Mobile's mission to be, to create these innovative mobile-first Web3 experiences. I'm sure we can get into some examples, but we're currently shipping to 33 different countries. We started out with a DVT program, which was for developers to get the sagas in their hands first, to start building before we went with a commercial consumer launch. And I think we really just want to showcase what's only possible on Solana, what's only possible on Saga. And here we are. I think 2 months to the day, actually, after we launched.
That's wild. Time flies. Like you said, it feels like it's already been a year, and no, it's been 2 months. So that actually leads to the next thing, which is I want to dive into the meat and potatoes of this thing, right? Which is, now we got that out of the way. And by the way, really helpful breakdown. That actually helped me better even understand, even though, we've been working together. Let's dive into Saga. We got to lay down all the groundwork, and then we can get deeper and deeper. But for anyone who, again, may be listening and has no idea what is the Saga phone, why is it so different? I think, a lot of people talk about Web3 adoption, Web3 mobile being so critical to the growth of this ecosystem. So this is, your guys' chance to kind of that 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch, right? What is Saga? Why should people care? Why is Web3 mobile so important? And how are you guys doing it in a unique way?
One of the first questions that we always get. So I have my Saga here, Blake. I know you have yours somewhere handy. So yeah. Awesome. So the first thing we have to answer and help people understand, and that's just by far the number one question we get, is why does a blockchain have to build a phone? And let's kind of square that one away for people. So I think the four of us here and a lot of people who are tuning in to listen probably are in the crypto ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, we all talk about we want to afford people the ability to do self-custody, and we want to bring people into this ecosystem to benefit from this new way of ownership, digital ownership. And at Solana, we always talk about we want to bring not the next billion, first billion of people onto blockchain. And and it was before my time, but when the team was ideating how we do that, it's really hard for all of us to imagine that the phone, the one artifact that I personally touch more than anything else in my life every day, it's really hard to imagine that this is not part of the solution. So, and then Anatoly Yakovenko, our CEO and founder, he worked years at Qualcomm. So he has a very deep mobile and mobile phone background. So he thinks that, and I believe this in this thesis, is mobile and phone has to be part of the solution. So he went ahead and partnered with this company called OSOM, and their team has years of experience building premier hardware. We partnered with them and built a phone that's integrated with all the Web3 technology, software technology that we've built. And then now the bears question, like, why can't you just put out your software out there and not build a hardware? Hardware by nature is hard. Why do you have to do that? And the reason is all software runs on hardware. And for us to deliver that end-to-end premier seamless experience, we decided that the first iteration has to be a custom device that's built from the ground up. That's a premier device, but also is seamlessly integrated with all the software services and software packages that we've built on top of Solana Mobile. And we call that all the software services, the Solana Mobile stack. I'm happy to dive deeper into what's part of the Solana Mobile stack. We have a seed vault, which is a secure custody of your keys and private keys right on your phone. It's akin to a hardware wallet. And then we have a dApp store that is not running on either of the duopoly application stores. And it's a separate app store that does not take fees, and it's very crypto friendly.
I just want to drive home like the importance of these things, because I'll just be honest, myself, I don't own a ledger yet, but now that I have a Saga phone, I'm talking to my community team, right? And they're like MySense Discord, you guys should, be using a secure cold backup. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll start to use the Saga phone, right? So I think I say that all to say that I think for those who may not yet have a hardware wallet, or for me, it's really a convenience issue, right? I think what this presents is an opportunity for someone like myself who knows I should do it. I just trust I'm secure enough, right? And I'm not doing enough degen stuff that I'll be okay. But now this creates that opportunity, right? To create that safety, and having that essentially a cold wallet experience on your phone is a pretty big deal. And then the same thing with the mobile store, because it's crazy, right? Like, how can we live in a decentralized future if Apple is taking a 50% cut and Google's taking a 30% cut every time? That's not Web3 at all. So anyway, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but just want to really hit that home.
We absolutely should dive deeper into the two pieces of Solana Mobile Stack that are most relevant to users. And you've already kind of spoke about both of them. One is Seed Vault and one is the dApp store. What I was going to say, and I'll just finish, is so there's a hardware layer and there's a software layer. And in between, there's all these things that actually makes the experience much, much better. So it's just, you have the secure storage of your keys, but what do you sign? How do you sign? So the signing on the phone is using a fingerprint to sign your transactions, but it's talking to the Seed Vault, so it's much more secure. And then it's using all the apps that are currently listed in the dApp store, so it's a much better experience. So we really wanted to deliver the end-to-end better user experience, but the experience part and the integrations and the SDKs, users don't see. It's not even user-facing thing or service. It's more relevant for the developers. So when you think about a phone, it's really like a two-sided platform, if you would. So you have users, the end users on the one side, and then you have the developers on the other end. And without the developers, you don't have the applications that end users will use. But if you don't have the end users, developers are not developing for anyone. So we have to benefit both of the sides of the platform. So we're trying to have benefits for both sides. So we actually create value for both groups of the people in the ecosystem.
Let's dive a little bit more into the dApp store. Can you tell us a bit more about it? What does it look like? What gets you excited? What's going on with the dApp store? Tell us more.
I think there's certainly like a lot of things that are exciting with the dApp store. But I just want to paint a picture of we're talking about mobile being part of the solution. We're talking about a unique experience. And I think one of the examples of how that's come to life recently is our mint windows with Claynosaurz. So Claynosaurz, if you're not familiar, is one of the top NFT projects on Solana. We worked with them in sort of, I guess, a strategic partnership to create a Claynosaurz collection where to be able to mint, you had to be a Saga owner. There's a bit of technicality within that, but basically when you purchase a Saga as part of the setup process, you set up what's called a Saga Genesis Token. So this is like a non-transferable token that sits in your wallet upon setup. And that can be used to that can be checked on to see if you're a Saga owner. And basically what we've done within the dApp store is created these mint windows where Saga users can go in and they can basically have an opportunity to mint one of these Claynosaurz. And we've seen people, you can check on Twitter, people that have, during our first mint window, minted from their dining room table. They minted from a parking lot after it was a soccer game or a basketball game, and another person actually minted onboard an airplane, on airplane Wi-Fi. And they did this all with their fingertips, on Solana Mobile, on Saga. And to me, that's really exciting because in all the mint experiences I have had to date, whether it's been on Solana or on other chains, I've been tied to my desktop, or I've been tied to lugging my laptop at weird hours to family or friend functions or whatever. And I think I don't want to get too clinical about this one, execution of what's cool with the dApp store, but this is certainly a topical one where, we really galvanized the community around how exciting this mobile mint experience was. And actually, we're doing our second mint window a bit later today in a couple of hours. So maybe after this podcast, you can check out to see how that went. And we're certainly going to do more of these in the future.
I love that.
Yeah, were you showing us for Clayno, or you're saying you're going to try to mint later today?
Well, I tried to mint on the last one. I just missed it. But what I'm saying is I'm going to go to a crypto event this afternoon, and it's literally from during the Claynosaurz mint. So I'm already talking to some other Saga phone holders, and we're just going to be we're all just going to sit there. I have my alarm set to 6:50, 6:55, and we're just going to sit there and we're all mint together. It's going to be a New York rooftop. So again, speaking of what Calvin's saying. Oh, I'll take a photo. Don't worry. Yeah, we're going to be on a rooftop.
Sounds like it'll be picturesque.
It'll be great. It'll be great. Sun pumps.
Clayno mint party. So I love that Calvin brought that up because that is an experience that was never possible before, right? So that reminds us why we built the phone. It's an experience part. And the mint was directly done in the dApp store. So we can actually leverage the notifications and you just go in and it's already connected to your wallet. So things that were not as directly achievable on a desktop. But to bring you back to your dApp store, why dApp store is revolutionary. I think it's significant for a couple of reasons. So let's start with the developers. So on the developer side, so we've all seen a couple of teams, whether they're on Solana or they're outside of Solana. One, the crypto apps or the Web3 apps all have had some kind of trouble getting through the approval process of Apple or Play Store. Every time they have to do an update, they kind of just submit their app and then fingers crossed, hopefully it goes through, right? So that's their first trouble. And the second one is either Apple or Google, they take extractive fees. It's anywhere between 15 to 30% on either app store. So that is not sustainable for Web3 business models. If someone buys a NFT on Magic Eden doesn't own that NFT. They cannot either ask the seller or the buyer to pay that 30% fee. It's just not feasible. So that's why we decided to build the dApp store for developers. So we don't take fees on our dApp store, and we have crypto-friendly policies. And it's not just limited to Solana apps. So if today there's an ETH builder who has an ETH application that they want to submit to the Solana dApp store, they're more than welcome to do that. So we built this dApp store to allow developers a direct connection with their users, and they can explore new business models because we do away with all the underlying restrictions on payments or transacting. So that's why we think it's significant for developers. So that's on the developer side. And on the user side, we think it's also a couple of things. So first of all, Calvin mentioned this earlier very briefly, is whenever someone sets up their Saga phone, when they go into the dApp store, the first thing they do is they claim a Saga Genesis token. And it's a soul-bound token that's not transferable, and it's tied to your Saga phone. But now, if anyone has a Saga Genesis token, we know this is a Saga user using a Saga phone. So it's established. And we're now using the Saga Genesis token as a basis of our rewards program. So when you set up the Saga Genesis token, you get airdropped 20 USDC and 0.01 SOL from us. And then we actually enable the Claynosaurz mint, as Calvin mentioned, using the Saga Genesis token as the gating mechanism. And this is what we did. But then beyond what Solana Mobile is providing, other apps that are on the App Store are using the Saga Genesis token to reward users. So Magic Eden is providing a $25 magic box, and Bonk who just got onto our dApp store, is offering 30 million Bonk if you just download the app and go in and claim. So we really think we're reinventing the business model for users on the on the App Store side too. Because in the past, if you download say Starbucks, your points sit in Starbucks. If you delete the app, the points kind of leaves with the app. But with self-custody and the Genesis token, whatever that you collected as rewards from the apps actually sits in your wallet. So this is the only phone that you actually get rewarded just for using it. So this is why we think we're actually reinventing the business model of app stores on Saga.
I just want to let that simmer for a second, right? Because Laura, you have so many good points, but I think we need to just digest these things, right? Which is, I think, with just playing it back for folks, right? I think across the ecosystem, right? I think that there's so much talk around brand loyalty, tokenized loyalty. What does that mean? What are the programs going to do? And I think a lot of people have been thinking about it more from the angle of, oh, we're going to tokenize Starbucks points, et cetera, right? It's about how do you take the Web2 stuff and pour it over to Web3. But what you're talking about right now is really fascinating, right? Because I think this is the only clear example that I can think of a fully Web3 native, kind of from top to bottom, right? Creating an entirely new token. This is the definition of tokenized loyalty, but in a much better way.
So yeah, we're still in the pretty early stages of building out the rewards program. So obviously Solana Mobile provided our welcome pack, and we're seeing more and more builders are interested in leveraging this platform. And one more thing that I think I should also touch on is, how a lot of time people do token gated as doing airdrops. And occasionally, yes, we want the airdrops, but a lot of times that we don't necessarily want them. But on the dApp store, what we encourage builders to do is to move that claiming experience into the app. And Bonk is a very good example. So you have to download the app and actually click a button to claim your 30 million Bonk. So it actually helps builders clear two hurdles. One is the hurdle of downloading the app. And the second hurdle is to start interacting with the app, and having a reward is an incentive to get users to start interacting with the app. So I think we actually have a built-in mechanism to help apps get more adoption and usage. So that's what we're excited about. And then one last thing I want to touch on for users is really the experience. And again, we're in the pretty early stages of reinventing how the Web3 experience, moving from a desktop first execution to a mobile first execution. So the one example that Calvin mentioned is a really good one. Now you're not tied to your computer to do any mints. And the other one that I really like is a first-party app that we built called MintyFresh. It's a pretty simple app, but people has been raving about it. So what it does is you can now just take a photo and then go into MintyFresh and mint your photo as NFT right there. We've seen a lot of people mint their dogs or their cats into NFT and just like posting the soul scan on Twitter. So right now it's just for good fun, but we now are starting to see artists just mint their artwork using MintyFresh because that is the most low lift way to mint an NFT. And they now are posting on different platforms to try to either run auction or sell their artwork. So we're thinking with this mobile platform, there are much better and easier experiences to be built. So now we're almost seeing a lot of app builders finally start to think mobile first. And we're almost like back in 2004, 2005, when the mobile Web2 revolution first starting. But now these app first builders are thinking how to build a mobile-centric experience, but now add an on-chain and Web3 component to it. So I feel like we're in that phase where a lot of people are actually ideating, and I'm excited to see what kind of breakout apps we might get out of it.
Oh my God. There's so much covered. Really appreciate you breaking down just all the features that this product has to offer.
So there's a lot to it.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's amazing. And like, going back to the format of this podcast marketing, there with everything that you laid out, there's a lot to dissect on the marketing side. Like, what is the go-to market for Saga? What sort of tactics, like channels, partnerships do you implement? Not just for Saga in general, but for each of these features. And as Calvin mentioned, like, with the Claynosaurz, mint experience, galvanizing a community is the name of the game with something like that. And just based on everything that you've just stated and laid out for us, Laura, partnerships seems to be really powerful. And obviously I know firsthand partnerships are a really powerful part of the marketing strategy for Saga. But yeah, there's a lot of learnings, right? A lot of trial and error, experimentation and learnings, I think, with the marketing that goes behind this powerhouse of a phone. So would love to dive into the marketing side of things. What sort of tactics, channels, what have you noticed has worked? Speaking of, Calvin talking about different target messaging for different communities, like what about the language has worked versus hasn't worked? Like, would love to just kind of dissect your guys' brain about the learnings over the last year or so from launching Saga.
Yeah, I think when you ask the question about what are the tactics that we're using, what are the channels, I'm stealing this quote from someone, but I think for the last year, we're still not truly in Web3 yet. We're in this like Web 2.5, 2.6 like iteration. And I think in terms of trial and error, which you mentioned, we are playing around with, I think, Web 2 tactics and seeing how they work in a Web 3 context. So not to break down our entire marketing stack, but you transact on our website through Shopify. So that's a name that Web 2 people will know. Obviously, we have an email database that we use to connect with our community. That is a tried and true Web 2 channel. And we're also playing around with ideas, whether they're in implementation or we're thinking about them. Things like refer a friend campaigns or in real life events, which we've been to over the past few months. And, even things like, buy now, pay later, like, payment installments. So maybe as, marketers listening to this podcast, they might not think of those things as groundbreaking per se, but I'd actually challenge that a bit. I think we're trying to see what is and isn't working from Web 2, like those Web 2 best practices, bringing them into this Web 2.5, Web 3 context. And yeah, really trying to do that trial and error I guess, A/B testing around what's working with different tactics, what's working with different channels, and that certainly kept at least me and Laura busy over the past few months.
I fully agree with that sentiment, because I think people talk so much about Web3 being, the future. And obviously we all believe that here, but I think the challenge is because it's so early, there's no reason we need to completely reinvent the wheel every time. So everything Calvin just said, and I'm sure Laura also agrees, and we all do, right, is how do we take the best practices from the traditional world, because there is a reason a lot of those things work. And it's just more, how do we take those things, kind of retool them and kind of make them better for this current environment that we're building and marketing in.
Julie, to go back to your original question of the go-to-market strategy, right? Whenever I think about a new product launch or really any marketing, I like to go back to the first principles of marketing. And I kind of break things down into 5 pillars, which are: who's our core audience? What's our pain point? Or what's our problem? And what does our product solve? How our products solve their problem? And then the last 2 is kind of what we've been talking here, is what's the messaging and what are the channels? How do we meet them, right? So the first 3 is a bit more like framework, more academic, which is who should we target and what's our problem? And I think this part does not really change from Web 2 to Web 3. It's human nature. If they have a problem, and if there's a product out there that solves their problem and makes their life better, the value prop will speak for itself. So I think that is how we approached the go-to-market and how we focus our core audience. And in this first iteration of Saga, we are only Solana at the moment, and the C Vault and the dApp store will benefit the people who are using our heavy Solana users. So that is a core group of people that we've chose to focus on, both the developers and the users. And these people will benefit the most from what we have built and packaged into Solana from the hardware and a software perspective. So that's kind of how I think about the first 3 part of the first principles. And then the last 2 is the fun part. How do we get to them, and how do we talk to them? I would say I have not found a silver bullet, the one channel, the one tactic that works wonders. So we're doing a lot of trial and error, and I think a lot of Web3 projects are doing the same. But I would say, though, is if you bring value, people will kind of trickle in and come in. They might just, in the past, we might have 7 or 8 tactics in Web2 marketing. Now we might just have to branch out, and under like the Web3 partnerships, there are 11 of them going on at the same time. So it goes back to what I was saying, it's not that scalable. One thing I would say, though, is out of all the things we have tried, the Web3 audience does respond to the very Web3 native tactics the best. So far, the things that has garnered us the most interest and the most chatters on social media or around the ecosystem are our NFT partnerships. So the 2 that are live right now are Claynoz and MadLads. So Claynoz, Calvin has already talked about, so I won't repeat that, but it is a exclusive mint partnership with Clayno. Clayno, they are introducing 2 new species, and those are exclusive only for Saga users. So it adds to their Claynotopia. And then the second one is MadLads. So MadLads, about, I would say, a month and a half ago, they had this very buzzy mint, and everybody was talking about MadLads. And a couple of weeks ago, we launched the etching program with MadLads, so people can have their MadLads laser etched on the back of their Saga phones. People there were a lot of chatters about it. So anytime you have a MadLad etched on your phone, it instantly becomes a one-of-one. And people are very attached to their MadLads. So their phones are becoming kind of this IRL thing that they can show off, not just online. So these are the things that we find people to really respond to, because it's something that they have already a connection with. And people love seeing different projects in Solana or across crypto to work together, because if we work together, that's how we win. And the community loves seeing that.
I mean, it's just status symbol, right? It really is. With being able to etch your MadLads onto your phone, which, by the way, is there a program where if you already have a Saga phone, like, can I send it in and then get it etched? Is that a thing yet? I don't think so.
That is.
Maybe
so
it's not.
We are not doing.
I think people would pay for it. I'm just saying.
So it's actually not the payment or the logistics issue. It's actually we don't want to take your phone in when you already have all your information on there. It's actually more of a security issue than not. So that's why we're only etching brand new phones, not going to take back the phones that people are already using and already like derived their seed phrase on. We don't want to take that.
That's fair. That's dangerous. I would love to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about kind of like roadmap, future, right? So I think one of the things I'm really curious about is, I mean, you even alluded to it earlier, right? Like with the Saga phone and the dApp store, obviously Solana is going to be a critical part of this for a very long time and theoretically forever. And it's a leader in the space. But there's this question of kind of, number one, multi-chain, right? So how, as Saga grows and eventually, hopefully everyone in Solana will have a Saga phone. How do we start to market and reach people in ETH and the L2s and these other ecosystems? And then I'm also curious about geography, right? Because I think a lot of us here are North America based, but obviously Europe is a huge market. And when we talk about mobile adoption, right, Africa and Asia, if we go back to Web2 days, a lot of those countries skips the whole get a computer, get a laptop, and then get a smartphone. A lot of those, many countries in the last cycle of technology just went straight to the mobile phone, right? So I'm curious about kind of multi-chain and geography and how you guys think about the future, right, when it is ready.
So I think multi-chain has an immediate action that we can take, and there's a longer term thing that we're assessing. So the immediate thing, I've actually already talked about it, is the dApp store is not a Solana only dApp store. If tomorrow a ETH app developer wants to put their apps on Saga, we 100% welcome that. And if they have any in-app transactions, they don't have to pay that transaction fee. So, and they can be sure that our policies are crypto friendly. That's something that we can already do today, tomorrow, and does not involve new development. So that's one way we can go multi-chain. And I think when people ask us about multi-chain, a lot of the times is the dApp store going multi-chain, being able to derive C phrase on different chains and using different standards. So that, we didn't talk about the tech part of C phrase, so of C-Vault. C-Vault is actually coded, it's a piece of operating system, a mini operating system that's coded onto the chip. So it involves both hardware and software. And to make that happen, we do need a hardware change, and also we need to involve a OEM. So it is a little more involved and the dev cycle is a bit longer. So it is definitely something that we are looking into and assessing whether and where to put it on our roadmap. But there are so many things that we can do. So we're kind of assessing it. But this is definitely one of the things that we get asked a lot. So there's nothing to share right now, but I can say we are assessing it and it's definitely on our mind. That's on the multi-chain part. And on the geo part, yes, very fair point that actually the majority of crypto and blockchain users right now don't live in North America or Europe or Australia and New Zealand, which are the 33 countries that we sell to. So, and the reason is actually, this goes a little technical about the phones. So the phones, they're actually physically different if you sell them in North America or Europe, or say the Asia SKU. We only produce 2 SKUs that can support North America and Australia, and the second SKU that supports Europe. So we actually didn't produce a SKU for Asia. So right now we cannot legally getting certified in the Asian countries or sell to those markets. But to your point, it makes sense. A lot of people have asked us for a second generation Saga or Saga Lite to support and satisfy the needs of those markets. Again, this is something we're looking into, and it's on the list of things that we could potentially do. Right now, because we're 2 months out from our launch, we're in the middle of a listening tour. So we're listening to our users, getting feedback, getting their thoughts on the pros and cons and what they like or do not like about the phone. And then we're using their feedback to inform our roadmap of what do we do next as Solana Mobile. So I don't have anything that I can share yet, but a lot of things that we're considering.
My understanding is it's pretty tough for like devices to come into a new market. There's like a lot of barriers with like legacy companies like the Samsungs and LGs of the world. I think that's a consideration as well.
As a Korean person, I can attest to the dominance of the Korean companies in at least Korea. Maybe not. I can't speak for everywhere, but yeah, that's fair. So I'll kick things off with rapid fire questions. Number one, Web3 project, not including, we'll try and be specific here, not including Saga phone or, outside of Saga, right? This is kind of a place for you guys to kind of talk about as individuals. It can be within Solana, but Web3 project, not including Saga, that you guys are most bullish on.
I'm a big sports guy. I mean, more so in my youth, but big into fantasy sports. So you might be familiar with So Rare. I think they're out of Paris, but they have some really big partnerships with, MLB, NBA. I just can't see that not working. Sort of these trading cards that you can collect. There's like a marketplace, and then they, earn points on a weekly basis. I see that working, especially where sports betting is going, especially in the States. And bullish is a really strong word. One project on Solana that I am cheering for is Sharky.fi, Sharky.fi. It's an NFT-backed loan platform, which I've been using myself. Really like the UX.
Laura, what about you?
I feel like I'm cheating by saying Claynosaurz, but it's not shilling for shilling's sake, because I actually really liked Claynosaurz before we even partnered with them. So full disclosure, I was never fully sold on the PFP projects, like any type. I was more of a one-on-one art kind of collector, but I was just never into PFPs. Claynosaurz, and you can check me on my Twitter, I did say that last year, they changed my mind about PFPs and NFT collections. And then after I got to know them, I realized they're some of the best creators and IP builders on not just Solana, all of crypto. And you look at their quality, it is just so top notch. I am really bullish on them actually building out a entire entertainment IP. And you kind of start seeing that happen. And I'm just along for the ride. And I really liked their dinos even before we worked with them. So I'm bullish on Claynosaurz.
Really exciting. They're going to be like the pudgy penguins of Solana and everything, right? Like at that scale.
I mean, the way they talk about their videos, they don't call them just videos. They call them trailers. They are you can see their movie maker background coming through, and they think about the storytelling way. They think about how do we entertain people. I think they come in with a really right mindset of building IP.
I'm just going to jump right into the second one. And as we mentioned, this is our favorite one. We always get really good responses, interesting responses. I'll start with Calvin. What is the biggest professional learning over the past 12 months? And then Laura after.
So my take on this one is, and I know you've had a lot of like founder C-suite level, people on the pod coming from like an employee level, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are too. I think the bear market for me, I've been at, 3 different Web3 organizations over the past year. It's been a tough year. It's been a bear market. There's been reductions in force like across the board. I would say the biggest professional learning I've had in the last 12 months was really to have like some thick skin through all that, because it's like not personal, and also like not to be afraid to like double down on yourself and like what you believe in. So I'm not sure where Web3 and blockchain technology is headed, but I'm super curious. I want to stick around. And my biggest learning was really just to lean into that.
Yeah, it's true. I guess I didn't even think about it. We do have a lot of founders or C-suites and stuff. I love that you gave us a different perspective that will resonate with a majority of listeners, because there's not everyone that listens to this is a founder. Yeah, exactly. It's important, especially in this space, in a space where there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, we have new government regulations and crackdowns, and all that happening. So it's a volatile industry. So yeah, it's nice to hear that perspective. So appreciate that.
Bet on yourself.
Nice.
Bet on yourself, Will. Let's do it. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, so I think my biggest learning is not as deep as Calvin's, but I think what I learned was coming from like a very defined career path, if you would. So I went to business school, got my MBA, went and worked in payments. I went to PayPal, kind of did the Silicon Valley tech path. Then life threw me a wrench and I ended up at Solana. And what I learned is your career path really can take you to very different places. And what I would say is the past 8 months has been the busiest period of my entire career, but also been the most interesting. And I've been thoroughly enjoyed this. And this is kind of the thing that struck myself the most is how much happier I am and how much more I enjoy this. So just kind of take the path that you didn't, give it a chance, and take the path you might not think that you will take, and it could surprise you. It's a very personal lesson. I don't know how applicable to a lot of other people.
I think that's very applicable.
No,
I think
yeah.
you're underselling yourself. Yeah.
And I think it's just as deep as Calvin. So great insights all around. We got to just be very bullish about ourselves. Bring it back to Web3 language.
No. I was just saying, and I think they actually tie very well together because I think, again, because of the very nature of the industry right now, right? It's like you got to bet on yourself. You got to take paths. You may be surprised, like Laura just said, right? Like when you do take that bet on yourself, you're going to be hella busy, but you're building on the frontiers of like whatever this next internet's going to be. It's a pretty incredible space and time to be here. And then if you really zoom out, we know from 2017, 2018, the last couple cycles, like if now's the time to like really do something interesting, and we're all going to benefit, in my opinion, over the next couple of years. So keep the faith. $1 million airdropped to your Saga phone seed vault in USDC, USDT, whatever stablecoin or stable you may choose. You cannot work at Saga for whatever reason. Not a bad performance review or anything, but you just aren't allowed. Where are you going to go build in Web3 today? It could be within the ecosystem. It just can't be at Solana Mobile or like directly or working on Saga phone.
I'll take a crack at this. And I will say that from Canada, I actually get like 1.3 or 1.4 million.
There you go.
So
you get a little extra.
That's a plus. So I'll bring my wife. So I have a wife. She's a school teacher. She's sort of like this amateur aspiring artist or something.
Got it.
I've gone to an extent before, like I sort of stopped halfway of like, she like drew these like animals and like I scanned them in. I was going to like mint them on ETH, but I feel like if I had this money, I would do it on Solana, and I would like get her to wake up one day and she could see that they were all like sold to like some sort of community or something. I would like organize some sort of campaign around that.
Oh my God. That is both romantic and cool.
Yeah, I'll show her a clip of this.
Just make it happen this weekend. You can mint them on MintyFresh, and you need is a business person, a creator, and a crazy Twitter intern. That's all you need.
I mean,
plug that with state compression, you can mint like 1 million NFTs on Solana for like $100. But yeah, good segue.
Winning.
I mean, Valentine's Day is like 7-8 months away, so you have plenty of time to plan this out. Laura,
how about you?
Yeah, it's along the same line with art. So I'm very into art history and just fine art generally. And I've overall seen a problem with revenance with high value artwork. Revenance means the history of the artwork, like who owned from what period of time. And if you have a hole, it's not a good thing. Sometimes the hole left out is when the Nazis kind of owned it, things like that. So I want to use blockchain to actually record and store or the revenant of different high value fine art pieces of work. So it cannot be, if you look at like different auction houses, they might have somewhat slightly different revenants. So I want to actually put it on chain so nobody can alter the history of a piece of artwork.
You can work with, well, I don't know, do you work with Solana Labs on that one, I guess? But it's like you can create a protocol layer for proof of art, right? And it's enterprise level. You talk to Sotheby's, Christie's. You go for the big players. You convince them, get them to buy into it, and then you can go to the smaller auction houses.
Yeah.
Boom. Sounds like we have a business. I love that. Well, if you ever want to build a dApp and go enterprise, you know some people.
Yeah. I'll round it out with the last one. Craziest predictions in Web3 for end of year this year. Calvin, if you want to follow the order of going first.
I feel like I'll use this opportunity to like plug our product again. I think my craziest prediction will be there'll be at least one other, blue chip NFT project that our users can engage with in some form or another. And hopefully we blow that out of the water.
I would say my crazy prediction, now I think about it, it might be crazy, is we might get regulatory clarification on tokens and crypto. And yeah, it might be crazy, right? Because given the way our government works.
The wheels are in motion,
Yeah, it is. But by end of this year, yeah, doubtful, right?
Appreciate the extra time. Yeah, I know, trust me, I know firsthand from working with you guys. You guys are very, very busy. So really appreciate it. I think we covered a lot, and I think everything we covered was super important. And I think our listeners will appreciate everything that came out of this conversation. So yeah, just to wrap things up, would love to have each of you show yourselves. Where can we find you guys? What social handles? And then same thing with Solana Mobile or Saga. Where can users learn about Saga, Solana Mobile? Where can they find them on socials? Just, yeah.
I'm literally Laura Shen. Spell out no period, no nothing on all social platforms. So very basic there. And Solana Mobile is just Solana Mobile, spelled out, no punctuation, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, although we're not that active on the latter two. And also our website is solanamobile.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Find us there. I wasn't able to get at Calvin Chan on Twitter, so I settled for 0x Calvin Chan. So you can find me there.
Well, thank you guys so much again for the time and the extra time. This was a wonderful conversation, as I just said. And yeah, I will be speaking to each of you guys very soon on Slack. So thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, y'all. This is really incredible. Thank you so much. And we'll see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of W3G. If you'd like to learn more about Web3 marketing, please visit myson.xyz and subscribe to our newsletter to get started.
And if you're a fan of the show, please be sure to show your support by subscribing and leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.